I'm Tantoo Cardinal, and you're listening to the Gratitude Network.
Everybody's on set and we're ready to rock and roll.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special simulcast edition of the Neil Haley Show and Your Beautiful Day here on the Gratitude Radio Network and Total Media Network. And I'm excited to welcome the host for this show, Your Beautiful Day, JennMog. Jenn, I am excited for another guest, another perfect one to really talk about gratitude and talk about diversity. And Jenn, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on the show. I love doing this together.
Absolutely.
And you know, Jenn, Mother of Gratitude, where every female is a mother of gratitude. On today's show, this is on my bucket list. I mean, this is so cool how Neil, it's like, hey, Jenn, I got another surprise for you. Guess who? She's not just an actress. You can't say she's just an actress. No. This lady has done over 100 TV and major motion films. She's up for Emmy on Stumptown on ABC. She's an advocate. She's just an amazing powerhouse of a woman. So without further ado, Tantoo Cardinal.
Thank you.
So how are you holding up with the pandemic, especially the last couple months? As being a performer, this is challenging, isn't it? To be not near people all the time and dealing with things.
Honestly, I'm just loving it.
Really?
You know, this is a time in my life where I can just be still. There's not this thing of calls coming in or an email or we have to go somewhere. Like today, I would have had to go to a studio or something, right?
Right.
Or maybe not even able to do it. Who knows? So I'm really appreciating. And another thing that I noticed is that my world as an actor, when you're lucky, you're working on other characters all the time. You're working on other scripts and you're bringing from the outside into yourself. But there's none of that going on. I had no characters to work on. I had no scripts. I had no nothing. And it was amazing to kind of get back to my own rhythms and the character study being my own self. And stories, I'm creating my one-woman show. And a pet project that I've had in my mind since the 70s. So the time to do things that I want to do.
I'm honored to be on with you too, Tantoo, because there's so much in your story that I'm excited to share with, especially like about your grandmother and some of the things you did with her and some of the acting that you've done. It was really touched my heart.
Tantoo, what has been one of your, I would say, gratitude moments during the lockdown where you've just had a moment to reflect inside?
Oh, so many. Gratitude, food, shelter, clothing. My daughter turned me on to food that brings to your door, and everything that you need to cook is right there in the box. And so that kind of keeps you out of the necessary traffic. You don't need to go out there. I'm just so grateful to so much. The place that I'm staying, it's on the ground floor. It's safe. It's a safe neighborhood. I've got this time to read and write and think, and also the time to work on. See, when you're working in this life that's moving so fast, and I'm not complaining at all. It's great good fortune for an actor to be, going, oh my gosh, time zones, and your body going through all those shifts and changes, and you can kind of lose touch. with the rhythms and the signals that are going on inside your body. So I had the chance to actually get into some meditation, actually being able to do yoga for more than what would happen in the life before is I might start it, I have 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden I'm whipped off to somewhere else. And that's not happening. So I've had the opportunity to kind of work in some yoga and work in some running, and to see people in the park trying to manifest their gym, having ropes tied to trees and manifesting some kind of movement going on, and it was just really beautiful to see people from all walks of life going to that park and seeing them settle in and get rooted with the ground and trees and in their worlds. There's so much to consider and think about that it's just been really enjoyable. And of course I've been solo. I'm the only one in my family that's been by myself through this whole thing.
Yes.
And
Oh my gosh.
that also, I took that as a ceremony, as an opportunity to go deep with the things that are going on inside. And as an actor, I think it's really important to kind of be in touch with those things that are on inside.
I think that's so amazing. I do what I like to call staycations, where I'll sneak away from my family. I've got 2 boys and a husband, and I'll do that. And so I actually said to him, I go, I would love a part of this, like I could be by myself for a little bit through, through this whole, not that I want to be myself through the pandemic, but my question is, what's your new norm? You had all this crazy stuff that pulled you, but what did you take from this that you're like, you know what, I want this the rest of my life. I'm going to incorporate this. Do you have that thing, like the yoga or whatever that is, that you're saying, you know what, no matter what, I'm doing this every day?
Well, I heard that it takes 5 weeks to establish a habit. So just forced myself to do this on a daily basis, which is more than you have to really. You know, run 3 times a week, that's fine. But because I really wanted to establish a rhythm, establish something that my body needs. So it's out of the mind, and your body starts bothering you. You know, like, oh, we need some movement, we need some stretch, we need some run. And so I think that's it's happening. And also when you can't do that, like this morning, I had to go and do my grocery shopping when the elders do their shopping before the stores open. And so my whole regimen for today, except for the meditation, that's the first thing I do when I get up. Everything is all set in its place. And I don't know what I'll do when I start traveling. Yeah, it's you know, you can kind of trick your system. That's what I was doing. I was tricking my system into appreciating this stuff. And it's just so much lighter. And even to deal with issues inside, you know, some anger, those kinds of things, to recognize this ball of energy that's not happy and to try to identify it and see what it's talking about and explore that world. See, it's been fun. You like that sort of thing?
No, and that's interesting. I like it too, and I don't know why it is. I think I got more organized in how I manage my day, because you don't have to leave the house to go to work. I work from home, but I would always have to go meet people, clients, or go different places, and now I don't have to go anywhere. So I saw it as such a powerful thing for me. I really enjoyed that for that fact. And then I also liked it because I saw things that I was doing before I won't do again. I don't need to go meet with clients as much as have international different people, just talk to them on Zoom. If it's a coaching session, you don't have to go to coffee. It's going to mess up the whole environment. But I miss certain things as well. Now, Jenn, isn't that amazing when you hear these things about Tantoo, when you're talking about specifically about meditation, everything that you like in your balance, Jenn, we're seeing,
Yeah.
talking to Tantoo about. And that's why I saw, wow, this is a perfect Your Beautiful Day guest. And you see the gratitude that she's already brought to the table. And the fans of hers now are learning, wow, the person on screen is like you and I in certain ways of balance and certain things that we don't get to hear in a story always in the quick segment or interview about the show. And that's what Your Beautiful Day brings to the table.
Thank you.
No hair and makeup.
Not a lot. One of the things that I really put out there, Tantoo, is that I want to change the world. I want people to go to sleep with gratitude in their life, wake up, look in the mirror and say, thank you. And for them to know that they are blessed, loved, and sacred. When you were talking about your ceremony, like, it came ceremonial to you when you were going through this process for the sequester, because it made us stop everything and redefine life as we know it. How did your ceremonial, how did that translate? Can you expand on that for us?
So there was a span where I designated 4 days to be a ceremony. And that's to make myself very conscious that I am spending time with my ancestors. I'm spending time in spirit. And so being cognizant that everything that is coming to me is related to what it is that I'm in ceremony for. And sometimes you know, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just going on intuition, and I need this space. I need to find out what it is that I don't know, that's kind of bothering me, that's trying to talk to me. And so, because when you're running and you're busy and you're doing things, you might not be so attentive to spirit or the energy that is beyond who we are, that's trying to get to you. And also, I lost a very dear friend. She was a friend of, over 40 years or so.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, and so it was a perfect capsule to recognize the new relationship. Life is still, it's very moving when you're in isolation, but there's a stillness, and there's a lot of conversation that can happen in that stillness. It's not the buzz of the traffic. There is no traffic. The birds are just so happy. Just leave the window open, and that's a part of it as well.
This is a side that we definitely need to learn from, how someone could live in Hollywood and still not be in Hollywood. And the way your balance and your ability, and I could see, Pearl, that she's able to bring that certain aura on set with certain projects she's doing. Pearl, don't you agree?
I totally agree. And Tantoo, what I love too, you said about the whole no makeup thing right now. That's my favorite part about this. I do a yearly retreat, and we get together with 20 women. I bring them together to have them work on different empowerment things like that. And the requirement is my speakers and the attendees are not allowed to wear makeup the entire weekend. And if you can't agree to that, then we're not the right space for you. So, because I really think like what you're saying is, it's a way that we can get one with ourselves. When we're not covering ourselves up behind the makeup, then when we're really feeling, I got, when you talk about the spirit, when you're really feeling those that are around you, and especially those that, were a huge, that are no longer here, but they're a huge impact on your life, and you can really get in and feel and listen to what, is in there, and you need to do, but you're kind of so busy you don't pay attention to it, that we can be in that space to really to listen to it. And I think I agree with Neil that it's awesome, and to see, because I think for those of us sometimes like Jen and, a little more connected to Hollywood than what I am. And for those like myself that, you kind of look at, actors and, well, they're over here. But sometimes we forget that they're just like us. They live and have the same jobs as we do. I just love that, that you took this time to be in spirit. That was one of the things that we've been doing, like Neil was saying. I love it. Neil, you're exactly correct. We have a whole new world of how we can do things and take care of ourselves, and Zoom and whatever, platform you find to do that. I think we need to use that because it gives us more of that time for that ceremonial with ourselves, with our self-care. And Tantoo, I love that. And I would say that, I'm excited to see that, and to see, and hopefully people that are listening take that lesson that you're teaching, that, we need this time. Life gets busy out there. And I think, yes, you bring that right through, and through, even in this interview, I can just feel it. So it's really amazing.
Well, it was kind of like a capsule or a punctuation, because being Indigenous and in this world, I've had to carry that all along, anywhere, in any of these places, even life previous to COVID, because you're kind of isolated, and being Indigenous in this society.
Mm-hmm.
There's still that old idea that we don't exist, or that we belong in the past, that we're not a part of the pulse of right now. And so that can be so infuriating, that I've really had to find a practice through all of these decades. So, I mean, there are times where it was just too much. And then you have to get back to your grounding again, get back to your roots again, because this society, really tried to erase us and make us invisible. So the things, the roots and the foundations of who we are. And even though the practice to try to change our minds into what they needed us to be, to forget that we're related to the land, that was what the power struggles were trying to do. That's why they took our children away from us. That's why they stuck us on fences. Because I'll tell you this, and it's one of my favorite illustrations of why our ways were outlawed. And that is, for example, in my grandmother's language and my mother's language, Cree, the word for fire is escoteo, which is made up of two words, esco, which means woman, and mete, which means heart. So fire is woman's heart. And the stories go on to talk about the fire at the core of Mother Earth. So, and we, from the womb, we know that the earth is alive. And that's been our ally. She has been our ally through all of this horrible misery of being targets, us being in the way. And there's going to be a time that people are really going to need to know how it is that we managed to survive, because that's where the power is. The power is with natural force.
Wow. And Jenn, and just thinking about all this, I just am blown away that her spirit speaking to all of us today. And so that's all I want to do, and just add it right into your next question for her.
I love that. My lineage is Cherokee and Irish. So my brothers got the Cherokee more than I did, because they could just go outside and just, look beautiful. And I would burn. But I've always had that, that in my life, that, our ancestors are here with us. you know, sometimes we can see them, sometimes we can't, but we can certainly feel them. And even after my father's death, I felt like I had a better relationship. I have a better relationship with him now than when he was alive. You would understand that
Yeah,
because they're here.
that's right.
They're here. How do you believe we're going to go from where we are? I mean, you've been there on the front lines, towing the lines in the protests for the pipeline, seeing all the protests in the street. Where do you, when it comes down to, before, when we had this coming up, we would have the elders up there saying, wait a minute, this was our land. You guys, you guys came over here first and took it over. How do you think, with all the protests and the way the world is pivoting right now, how
Yeah,
does it impact
right.
Indigenous communities?
Right. Well, I'm really excited about how awake people are, how vibrant and how done with it they are, and how peacefully everybody is coming forward. And the allies that are there for Black Lives Matter. And in our world, as Indigenous people, our stats are way higher than the stats in Black Lives Matter. But I don't think we'd have as much allyship on the streets. This society is not quite ready for the fact that we're here. And I don't know if it's kind of related to guilt about the land. I don't know if people feel that. Generationally, how that's manifest. And there's just this thing that we don't deserve a good life. And so that's so difficult to break through. And for me, because I've been involved so long that I'm just pulled right back.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, y'all just go on ahead, shake it loose. Yeah, and you see the transition. At first, there was this violence that was happening, and then it came in and got back to that place of peace. Because there was a great place of peace when the quarantine was first called, and the air got cleaner, and
The waters got clearer.
Yes, and the animals and birds and everybody. It was just like we were all here, and it was all good. And then, oh man, when all of the violence was starting to happen, then here it is again. So I'm really hoping that those good minds and hearts are going to have a say on the way things go. But then again, we might be in for another disciplinary move. I don't know. I think that people have to understand, I think, that unless you're creating something that is on the foundations that natural force designs, that if what you're creating can go with the flow of the important structures, and that's the natural structures, that those are the things that are going to survive. Those are the things that are going to last. I don't think that these things that are built just for greed, just for self, I don't think those things are going to last. Maybe it's just my hopes, but I think that respect for the land, for lack of a better term, is really going to have to be the way to go. And our young people now, who knows what they're going to do, and it's very exciting.
What's one or two lessons you learned over your life that you would say to them, listen, when you are doing this, keep this in mind, or do this, or maybe don't do that? Is there a lesson you can share with somebody listening, what you brought forward from your spirit and your ancestors?
Well, that's one thing that I do remind them of, that they're not alone. That that the work that we've done thus far, it may not seem like it's enough, because so much has to change, just in terms of our business and just in terms of telling stories and getting them right, or at least moving them towards a truth that's digestible. And there we have a lot of young people that are really well educated now, and they've been raised by parents who have taken back the culture that had been outlawed, and they have been given those traditions that I did not grow up with those things. Those were long gone, because I was born in Fort McMurray, and they were after that land for a long, long time, and they had to conk us out so that we wouldn't be able to stand there and hold that treaty in front of them, and that they would have to honor this treaty. It's a legal agreement. And so that a lot of that manipulation has gone on for generations, and that's a lot of what we have to fix. So what I would like the young people to recognize, you don't throw it all out. You go to those roots, those long, long roots, and honor those ancestors that did the best they could from generation to generation. And if you think it's hard, find somebody back there that had it rougher, that had it harder. And that helps you keep moving forward. And you can feel that you're not alone, that you're on your trail of justice, your trail of freedom. And yeah, the tears are there, and those are the stones that you walk on. Those are the things that you don't want to see again. You don't want it happening to your people, and it's not a way to go forward. You know, it is quite visible in the Black Lives Matter movement, the power of the ancestors, the power of prayer, the power of peace, and the nonviolence. We have that as well. We've had some major altercations that powers that be really wanted us to make a wrong move so they could just corral us again. We're off the reservation when we're going for freedom.
Right.
You know?
And what sometimes is not highlighted is what you went through. Meaning, we talk about Blacks and what they've gone through, but the indigenous people, no, not at all. In so many ways, from taking off land to certain things that had, and the suffering that certain people are going through today based on discrimination and racism. And then your activism is such a powerful thing. What made you get started doing the activism types of protests and stuff? What kind of led you to that? Did your platform help you in a lot of ways of being an actress, saying I can really make a difference in that? Or is it just
I found the acting through my rage. When I came to the city when I was 15 to go to high school, the way my people were treated, it just enraged me. And I didn't think there was any point in even living unless I was addressing that in whatever way I could. And yet at the same time, I refused to put myself in their institutions so that they can pare away and trim me up so I can fit into their society or their systems or whatever. I had too much rage for that. So I really, it was based on a voice that I heard saying everyone's been given a gift. So I went about to find out what was the gift that I had. And I didn't go to universities and colleges because I didn't trust it, but I did pick people's brains. The people who did get solid education, and also the people who had been able to hold their traditions. There are families that hid their children so that their children would not be put into that residential school. There are people who went into hiding and saved our wisdoms, our ways, is saved enough of it so that we had something to really build on. My generation, you know, the 60s, it really was about bringing this stuff out. I just really had a strong impression of trying to dig through the rubble to find the gems, because how that colonization and genocide works is it tries to trick you into thinking that that's backwards and that primitive is something that stupid people are. You know, all of that mess that a person has to go through. So I was a little crazy. I was a little batty. And maybe I still am, you know, you're the last one to know when you're off your rocker, I heard.
Nobody tells you.
No, they won't do it.
That is amazing. I didn't know people were hiding their children. It makes so much sense.
No, how else could we have kept it? God, what they did to us.
It was a bit insane, even growing up in Athens, Georgia, where they were segregating and the non-segregating and the violence that went with it. But to hide your children to protect their present, not just the past, not just the history of the culture, but the present. I don't think any cultures need to be saved. I think everybody needs to be made whole in exactly what the foundations were and are, and to keep them and bring them into the future.
Well, I unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, I think our culture is crucial because within our culture is the relationship
Right.
with the earth. I have a friend who they're trying to be keepers of the sacred springs on Mount Shasta. And this through generations, these are the people who hear the spring and who take care of the spring. Because if you don't touch a baby, the baby will die. You know, as an example of how important that touch is. So there are ceremonies, there are practices that are a part of keeping the earth healthy, keeping us healthy in that interreaction. And I do believe that every culture started out with that relationship with the earth.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and both of your cultures, you know, the Irish and the Cherokee both suffered greatly from the people who were in connection with the earth had to be destroyed. And these are the times that we're in now where all of that is coming back and saying, you can't live without us. And
you can't.
Yeah, and so if people don't catch it this time, if the society doesn't start kind of recreating itself with that understanding, then we're going to get it again.
It's going to be a pretty crazy thing if we don't unify in unity and change the way we present ourselves in so many ways. So Tantoo, I wanted to go to some projects and then the Pearl will ask some questions and Jenn regarding the project. So let's go to cooking first, and then we'll go to Stumptown last. So tell us about the cooking you're doing. Tell us about that.
Oh, well, it's just getting back in the kitchen, right? Just getting back in the kitchen. And again, that long, long history. Because part of genocide is destroying everything that belongs to you, everything familiar. Any pots that the people cooked in had to be destroyed and shattered. And people corralled on reservations and being forced to eat what the government provided.
Mm-hmm.
And there are horrible stories about what that is, about, you know, rancid bacon and food with worms in it, and what a person had to do, what women had to do to go and collect those rations off of these Indian agents. And the horrible food, the commodities that were for the reservation. And it's just been a hellish. And that is a tactic, as poverty is a tactic, as food was a tactic. And then I shouldn't really be talking about it, but in a so-called relationship, it was a tactic to keep me out of the kitchen so that they could become prime parent. And then when they took it all and separated, I would have to be left supporting them because they could claim they were the prime parent and la la la. So, I mean, it's not a fun piece of history, but it's also a part of the reality of why I had to, that I enjoyed a box of food landing on my doorstep, that going to the grocery store wasn't safe because I pulled away from even what I used to cook. And I pulled away from it for so long that it was a journey in itself to go into cutting the food up and putting it all together and la la la, the sauce, and who does that? And then to enjoy the meal all by myself, to cook for myself. Are you nuts? You know, just grab some bread and throw some peanut butter on it, you know, kind of thing. I mean, it's just, life can get so like a tangent sometimes when you're focused on what you're doing rather than how you're being.
My family laughed at me. Mom, you don't know, you only cook twice a year. I'm like, well, that's your granny's fault because my mom never really cooked. And when I was little, my granny, she'd just get in the kitchen and she'd just like throw stuff together. And sometimes I can kind of remember some of the stuff, but I'm like, you know, have to look at recipes. But I have a dear friend of mine, she's a raw vegan, and she's so into the earth and, you know, how to use the earth to eat everything. So I think it's just awesome that you found that again. But what I also love is that you're a strong woman, and your strong sense of how you carry that through in your characters and portray that out. What's some of that area that you're trying to carry that strength that you have and pay it forward to other women like myself and that are listening to help them with their strength? If they're struggling, like if they're struggling in a spot right now, they're not sure how to move forward in that, what is that you would say to them?
Well, you know, I think those things are really individual. And I end up doing some of that stuff on Facebook and Twitter. And when I was out in the world meeting people, I was on the board of ACTRA for a while, but that was about our business. And so I get opportunities a lot, and just talking to people, and nothing formal. I'm creating a school right now that's a film acting / survival school, and
Nice.
back in my home territory. So that's in process. That's something that I was able to do with Zoom, because you can have meetings on Zoom and you can gather this stuff together and you can make your plans and set your foundations. But as far as creating my one-woman show, I have to get in my car and I have to go, and you have to be in a space and work together on that. But as far as my character, say, on Stumptown, my base, yes, comes from my ancestors, my grandmother and my mother and my aunts, and the people who raised me in our community. But through the course of my trails and my travels, see, that's one of the things that was so infuriating. You couldn't get any decent roles. Our stories weren't being told as Indigenous women.
There was a good show on Netflix they canceled after one season. I really enjoyed. It was really good, and they canceled it. And I thought, I was all into it, and I think that some heavy hitters were part of it too. And that's the problem. I don't understand why.
So what I really appreciated about this is the writer, Greg, the graphic novelist, he knows the women from our communities. He grew up around Portland. So he based Sue Lynn on women that he knew. And that was so exciting to see, because we have such powerful women all throughout our communities, throughout our nations. How else could we have survived, without the power of these women and men? But, men were kind of almost, oh God, a man is supposed to be able to care for his family. And they took everything away. Yeah. They took livelihood away. They took it all away. And they talk about, oh my God, the unemployment numbers. Check out unemployment numbers on the reservation. Check that out. Mm-hmm. And consistently, generation after generation, and we're still here. Then don't you kind of wonder, like, how you do that? Instead of just still treating us like we're some creepy thing that crawled out from under the rug. I don't know. I get like that sometimes.
Hey, that's your activism. You have to speak out when it's feeling like that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an amazing passion, and I think when somebody takes, like somebody like you and like the things that Jenn does and I do, we take our passion and we just put it out in the world. It teaches lessons, and it's lessons that need to be heard. And even if it's hard lessons to hear, we have to hear those lessons. We just need to know.
The truth will set you free.
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to easily be manifested? Through social media? Is that the biggest platform that we have going forward? Or is it going to be TV shows or your cooking show? How do we manifest a more even playing field?
I'm not doing a cooking show. I'd be lucky if I can feed myself. I can't tell the world what to do. That's for sure. I can certainly hope that
you can influence,
make it easier on living things. But that's always been the prayer, right?
Right.
So how I want to approach it is try to keep my body as clear as I can possibly be, and to treat the moments, the work that comes my way in the best way that I can possibly, so that I can hear what that moment needs to be in a good way. So by getting rid of my baggage, then I can travel lighter and get quicker to the place. That's my theory. We'll see how it goes.
Any other projects you have going right now that you can talk about?
There's all kinds of wonderful ideas that are going on, but Stumptown's the only thing that's sitting right there. And yeah, we're going to do this, and we have a meeting coming up to see what the stories are going to encompass. But I'm really excited. The people that we're working with, the Stumptown people, are just fabulous, and they really want to treat this character and her world in a good way. So it's not a case of so often, I mean, so much of what my path has been is, you know, a small role in a big story, but it's not the woman's story. And so now here's a place where the woman has some say.
Fantastic.
And other projects that are not ready to be talked about.
And it's your socials or your projects, right? What you're doing on social media to get that message out.
I'm not, you know, I get invitations like from you. I don't put myself out there.
Okay.
I accommodate when people want me to be a part of their conversation.
That's very nice.
So otherwise, I'm doing my own writing. I mean, creating a one-woman show as
that's definitely
really,
the project.
yeah.
When do you look to launch that one-woman show?
Well, I'm going to be leaving town here towards the end of the month to go do some writing with an artist friend of mine, and I have a 10-minute kernel, and that we're expanding that into an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward
Awesome.
to it. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. This is a project that's been revolving in my head
We know those kind of
decades, at least 5 decades. And then it's going to come to some kind of fruition. I don't know what that's going to be like at all, but I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to feel good. It's going to feel good when you have these projects and you're like, finally they come out. It's like, it's awesome. Pearl, any other questions for Tantoo?
No, I just want to say, Tantoo, it's been awesome to feel your spirit through this interview and your, you know, your passion for your people and for those of us around you as well, and for women in general. I think it's just awesome. And I'm going to take your get rid of the baggage. I'm going to share that with my women that I work with, because a lot of times we have baggage that we're just hanging on to, and I'm talking to them about shackling their boundaries, and getting rid of baggage is definitely part of shackling those boundaries. So I'm excited to see the next season come up. I guess the only last question I might have is, what is the talk right now with all the pandemic, with all the shutdown and everything, as far as letting you guys start coming back and doing filming? Has there been any discussion on that?
Yeah, there's been some discussion, but it's all in pencil and it's kind of theory.
Mm-hmm.
There's talk about maybe mid-August. It's talk, you know, September, and then there's the practice of how are we actually going to do this? Are we going to do green screen? No, we're not going to do green screen. And I think each of the shows have to design their own particular approach to how they're going to do it. And so there's technical things like zones that we will be in, with masks, without masks.
Right.
And crews being smaller. And there was talk about no hair and makeup, and I go, no, Susan will lose her look. We can't have hair and makeup. But
And there's also talk of your Emmy nomination.
yes.
Hello.
What?
You didn't talk about that as a project. Tell us about that. That's a great,
there's
great
an
question.
Emmy nomination here. That's why we want to talk with you, and we want to say congratulations on that.
Well, it's a suggestion. Who knows if it's going to be a nomination? It's a submission.
Fingers crossed.
All right, fingers crossed. We don't know yet, eh? We don't know if we're going to emerge this year or not. But it's fun.
Great.
It's good. And one thing about this work, this particular place, being in a series in Hollywood, and the bells and whistles that are required for that vehicle, is I have a publicist and I have an assistant, because it's necessary. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
So they're the ones that are manifesting all this kind of stuff, and I'm along for the ride.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. And where can we connect social media? What social media platforms are you on? People can follow.
Facebook and Twitter. That's it.
It's it's what you have time to do. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah. I don't, some days it's all right, but it really is a task sometimes.
And it changes so much every day.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah,
it does.
but it's good to see where people's heads are at.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some really wonderful stuff, and there's some, you know, the normal, oh no, go drink some water, down, you know. But it's really, there's so much knowledge coming forward, you know, even what's available in the green world. There's no excuse anymore. They used to use that excuse back in the 80s. Oh, it's too expensive. We can't go solar. We can't go wind. It's way too expensive. That excuse is gone now. So now it's getting down to the brass tacks of, oh, you're hanging on to that because of the money.
Mm-hmm.
If it goes solar, then that money isn't going to be there now.
I just want to say thank you for being on our show, and that you are definitely a mother of gratitude. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do next and how you're going to help shape the world like you have since you've landed on this planet.
Thank you so much.
Because you just are a very inspirational woman, and I am just so honored to have finally met you. And thank you.
Yes, thanks again for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate it too.
And remember, you are blessed, you are loved, and you are sacred. Have a beautiful day.